As the next part of the drum set, I want to address the probably most important drum, the snare drum. And as I said, this goes right in between the knees, obviously, but I want to show you where I put it in relation to my body. So first, the height of the drum and the angle. So the height of the snare, I try to do the following. I take my stick like so, and if I move my leg underneath, hi-hat leg, nothing will happen. I won't kick it. I won't kick my stick if I want to hit a rim shot, and at the same time my leg would come up maybe in a groove of solo situation. So I can actually execute the rim shot without my knee kicking against my hand, so the rim shot won't be executed as I wished. And the same on this side, obviously. If I play the bass drum, this part, the knees have to be able to move freely in a full like fortissimo way, without obstructing the motion, the rim shot on the snare drum, obviously. So as a rule of thumb, I would say snare drum goes as low as possible, because I certainly don't want it up high like so. As low as possible, and as high as needed to avoid the obstruction of the rim shot. That's basically it. And with the rim shot, that's an idea I recently got. The middle of the snare drum will roughly stay the same, no matter what inclination I choose. If I tilted the snare drum like so or like so, this part will roughly stay the same height. So I actually can not only change the height of the snare drum, I can also tilt it a little away from me, and the result will be the snare feels low, but the rim shot will be possible whatever I do with my legs. So that's another angle, so to speak, to play with the angle of the snare drum also, to not have it even or not have it tilted towards you. That's what a lot of people do. They tilt it towards themselves, and then it has to be up, of course, which I don't really see why, because of the hi-hat ratio that comes later in the next step. So that's basically it for the snare drum. This here is a 15-inch right now. You can see it from that perspective. It doesn't really matter whatever. It's really I'm looking at the middle. That's where my stick, where the tip of my stick goes mostly. And if I have this and this grip, and I have right angles here, that's where my snare goes. As a rule of thumb, I will have to change this around later. Obviously, if I add more parts to the drum kit, like a hi-hat, and depends on how big the hi-hat is, where actually the hi-hat stand goes and where the snare drum, in the end really goes. But this is how I build up the kit, or how I'm thinking it's best to do. And now we're going to the hi-hat stand. And the last thing for the basic setup will be the hi-hat stand, and that's a straight line, top to bottom, obviously, as it should be, as our back should be. And if you want to make sure it is, get a mirror. It doesn't have to be a fancy one, just a mirror that's big enough so you can actually check the straightness of your back, because this part here should be also like right angle-ish, and this straight, so don't bend it in like this. This is not fun. Most people sink in like this, like so. So that doesn't give me any energy. I don't feel energetic to play my instrument, and it's certainly not good for my back. So I'm trying to feel vertebra on top of vertebra, and not any bend in the lower spine, like a hi-hat stand, so to speak. So hi-hat stand, you will know the height of the hi-hat is determined by my way of playing, but this goes onto that felt, and this goes obviously between the two felts or rubber points. And make sure if you get a hi-hat clutch, watch your hi-hat clutch. The clutch should have something that just came up, see? We need a thread here and we need a thread here, so these two can hold on to each other. But in the middle there should be a non-threaded piece. That's where your hi-hat cymbal is going to touch that rod here. So if you have it like so, and if your hi-hat clutch doesn't do this, get a new one. Gibraltar, they're decent ones. They are one size fit all, like this hole fits all the hi-hat rods in the world. And I actually have one with me wherever I go. If I'm on tour, this is the part that I'm taking, because I don't want to mess up my hi-hat cymbals in the long run, and I want to make sure my a hi-hat clutch of my choice fits all the rods in the world. So Gibraltar will do that for you and have that also. It's like a clamping type, you know, and not like a rod hits rod type. You'll figure that out. But anyways, felt number one. Yeah, this way. And then the cymbal, you know, not touching the thread at all. And felt number two, and then the counter thingy. And then this goes here naturally. So now, how to determine how high, you know, this goes? Most people just set it somewhere where it feels comfortable, and I have a tendency to not do that, because if I do it too narrow, like this, then if I let go, I have this rattling sound, because you know it's at the end already. So I prefer to have it wider open, like so. So I can actually play the hi-hat even forcefully, like with a lot of amplitude, without having that sound ever occurring. So I control the pedal like with the bass drum with the tip of my foot, basically, and I never let it come up all the way. And what I came up with on how to set that level, I open that screw all the way, and then with the bass drum pedal, I obviously, since the beater hits the middle of the head, and then it can't go any further, right? So I go down with my foot till I hit the middle, and now the left foot is free to move because I opened that screw. So now I go with my feet. I try to reach the same level above ground, so to speak. Like the pedals have the same level now, I hope. It feels right now. And I keep it that way, and then I tighten that screw. And now it's pretty wide open, as I like it, for that sound reason. But also, if I come down with both feet at the same time, it feels like I'm hitting the ground. I'm not like, one is not higher than the other. It's not, I don't feel steep in any way. I just feel level, as if I would do the same thing on the floor. That's something about balance, you know. It's very specific, obviously, but since the question came up about hence a specific answering. Okay, so we have that. The hi-hat now has its height, and I obviously play it with the same motion as with the bass drum. So the motion of the whole foot is the same thing. I take my heel up, and the toes come up. The heel goes down, and the toes go down, like so. Only difference is, of course, here I mesh them together, because I usually want a stopped sound, a stopped chick sound. That's actually what we call it. That's a chick sound. That's a chick sound. We have a swoosh sound also. The swoosh sound would be then comparable to what we did with the bass drum. I use the rebound of the hi-hat, so to speak, which doesn't have much rebound, as you will notice later. But the swoosh sound is I let the cymbals separate after I kick them. And by itself that can sound very grim, but it might come in handy when you play certain things. It's another word in your vocabulary, so that's something to think about when you play the hi-hat.